Good evening and welcome to the Greg Tompsett Football Show. Tonight we are going to go all around the NFL looking at this Week 8 slate of matchups and give you all the lowdown of what you should be rooting for as a Bills fan. We will, as always, use our rooting interest guide from our friend Uber Hansen, who writes these up for Sports Illustrated and for the Reddit community. We post them on Twitter. I'm going to use his Twitter feed to be able to share as we go through here. And we will identify the games that you should be rooting for. We are at halftime of this Thursday night football matchup between the Minnesota Vikings and the LA Rams. Obviously not a hugely impactful outing here from a technical standpoint. Obviously, Uber writes about how the fact we're playing the Rams, there is the possibility of a tiebreaker that comes up. So sure, we'll root for the Rams. You guys know I've mentioned this multiple times in my recaps and in my preview shows. I have a soft spot for the Rams. I really like Stafford and McVay. They're kind of my second favorite team overall. I think I like the Rams the most of any of the other squads here. And it's a fun game back and forth. Producer Chris and I were just talking pre-show that they started out touchdown, and now neither team has been able to figure anything out since then. So it immediately went to now no one's crossed the 50. So we'll see where the rest of this game goes. But a fun matchup so far, and a lot of points being scored. One of the very first matchups here. This is just a huge sigh of relief game for the city of Cleveland, for all of my adult friends around the area here, my neighbors, my wife, my father-in-law. The Cleveland Browns fans get to watch a game without the cloud of Deshaun Watson. I don't know that it's going to matter. I don't know that it's going to actually be enough because they're playing Baltimore, and that's a tough matchup. That's asking a lot. They are 8.5 point underdogs at home, which is wild. That is a crazy number. But I get it. So they get to watch Jameis Winston. They get the relief of everything going there. I believe they opened the IR return designation for Wyatt Teller. We saw the return of Nick Chubb last week. They're starting to get some things together and now just get the relief of just watching a football game without anything else involved. So I feel for them. I'm happy for them. We're going to be rooting for a Browns victory because it helps us for the Ravens to get a loss. I won't lie. I'm not expecting it. The Ravens are obviously playing probably as well or better than any team in the league right now. They're probably the hottest team in the league. They have an awful lot of things go in the right direction. But I'm still going to be rooting for Cleveland come Sunday. The next one, Titans versus Lions. We just saw this Titans team in the same tale of two halves for us was, kind of a disaster of two halves for them and kept it tight with the lead early on and then just got demolished in the second half by the Bills. The Lions are certainly capable of doing that and more. They are, if anybody's going to argue for the hottest spot in the league against Baltimore, it's probably Detroit. They are looking fantastic. This is also an easy one for us because, any NFC versus AFC, you always root for the NFC team. So we'll continue on that path. I don't expect that to be a terribly competitive game either. This is the one I'm interested in. Arizona at Miami. We have the return of Tua Tagovailoa. Obviously, all the corresponding, fantasy football impacts of that with what it does for Jalen Waddle, what it does for Tyreek Hill and A.J. Mostert in the backfield. And, obviously we saw a bit of a bit of Mike McDaniels turning into a pumpkin here without Tua. And I think a lot of people, myself included, maybe gave him a bit more credit for that offense than Tua was getting, but maybe Tua was more of the factor in that offense. We now have Arizona coming in who have been a very competitive team. They've hung around in several games, but they've also had a couple stinkers. So this is going to be an interesting one. Super easy from a rooting interest standpoint. Of course, we want the Dolphins to lose. We want to root for the NFC team. This is a division matchup. Anything we can do to just continue to stretch that division lead is in our favor. So easy from a rooting interest standpoint. But this is a game I'm interested in and going to be watching in that 1 o'clock window because the Bills play at 4 o'clock this week. So we get some options to watch the 1 o'clock window before it switches over to 4. Another one, super easy rooting interest because we get kind of the double bonus here. The Jets are at the Patriots. We get to root for the Patriots to ruin their draft pick a little bit more. We get to watch the Jets just kind of continue to just crumble into themselves and hope that both teams are 2-6 as this comes up and happens in the matchup here. So I have no idea what to expect here. Drake May has looked sneaky. I actually think he's looked pretty good. If I was a Patriots fan, I'd feel pretty good about what he's shown in flashes. He's inconsistent. He's still a rookie. There's not a ton of talent or protection around him, but he's still producing each week and putting up some plays and making that team more entertaining at a minimum. The Jets are a mess. They do get Hassan Reddick back here. Their second week with Devontae Adams. At some point, I expect the talent here to overcome some of the mess, but man, they've made it hard to be able to do that. Next game, just an NFC one, Falcons versus Bucks. This is two teams that have both given up some ground lately and taken a couple tough losses. This is a big one where they both teams need to figure out where they're going, what they're doing, what they're trying to accomplish here, and not giving up any further space in the division. I'm really curious to see what we find with the Bucks here. They lost both Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Godwin for the season, Mike just for the IR designation, but it sounds like through the week 11 bye for them. And the Falcons, have had some really high highs, but some rough lows. So I like Atlanta here. I think that they're going to have a chance to be able to take control of this division while the Buccaneers are missing their two top receivers. But between Sterling Shephard and Jalen McMillan and some of the other pieces around Tampa Bay, Cade Otton maybe, and their kind of three-headed running back attack, maybe they'll surprise and come out with something here. But I think I like the Falcons in that matchup. Another NFC matchup, Bears and Commanders. We'll see if Jaden Daniels plays. I think that we're going to have another Marcus Mariota. This would have been a really fun one with the top two quarterbacks playing each other, but I think we're going to get robbed of that, and we'll just have Caleb Williams out there, but probably Marcus Mariota. Last week, Cliff Kingsbury kept it going, even with Mariota. So shout out to him and that entire Washington team, what they've been able to put together here. One of the most pleasant surprises in the league, but a fun game and oddly a surprising playoff impactful matchup in the NFC because a 4-2 team and a 5-2 team. I don't know that a lot of people expected that coming into this matchup, but good for them to be able to set it up that way. Another one, NFC versus AFC, Packers versus Jags. We'll, of course, root for the Packers and give another AFC team a loss. I don't know that it really matters with the Jags. But another team that's a little bit surprising. I kind of expected to see a little bit more out of them this season, and the Packers have been a really fun and exciting one. So that'll be an interesting one to watch, and I expect to see the Packers to give the Jaguars all they can handle and more. I expect the Packers to come away with a pretty easy victory there. Here's another one with some interesting strategy. I like the way that Uber kind of talked through here. You're always going to root from kind of top down in the strategy. So, of course, we want the AFC South to be more muddled and to be into that window here. We want the Texans to get a loss so that their head-to-head victory over us is not a tiebreaker and we have a lead on them in this matchup. So, that's easy from a rooting interest standpoint. I also hope that we get to see a bit more consistency out of Anthony Richardson. I think there's still some just inexperience in what we're seeing, but man, I'd love to see some more flashes of some stretches with consistency, some improvements in the mechanics and in his footwork. And I think you're going to need that to be able to take down a Texans team that has not been perfect. They just dropped a game that they probably should have been able to hold on to, but we'll root for the Colts here in this matchup and see where that one takes us. Saints Chargers, another easy one. We'll root for the Saints to be able to knock off the Chargers. Chargers are a tough team. They've been putting together some good games, but still some inconsistency. They're still hanging around and in a spot where I think I would probably pick them for the 7th seed at this point. Right now, they're a half game behind the Broncos and the Colts, who have both haven't had their bye yet. The Chargers have had their bye. So I think they're going to be there. We'll, obviously we don't want to let any team catch up to the Bills. So, it's right to root for the Saints in this matchup, but I do think the Chargers are going to be able to take care of business here. I think they're a solid team and are just a pain to play every time that you go in and have to play them. I think that this is one where I'm expecting the Chargers to pull this off, even if I'm rooting for the Saints to knock them off. We all know Bills Seahawks, super easy to know what to root for. A bunch of great shows. Aaron and I had Ben Baldwin, the computer cowboy, on Twitter on his show. Anthony Prohaska had Mina Kimes, just a great slate of guests here this week on the Cover One Network. Go make sure you check out both of those games to get more on this Bills Seahawks matchup. Tons of good stuff to be able to watch. And obviously, we'll be rooting for the Bills all the way. Eagles Bengals, another super easy one, and one where I think we have one of our best shots here. I think the Bengals are playing well. They're getting their stuff together, going back the right direction. I'd love to see some of that momentum stopped here with an Eagles team that looked pretty good coming out of the bye. I think that they seem to be able to get their house in order. There was a lot of rumors and stuff out there with Sirianni and how that team was going. They looked good last week. I think that they can take care of business with the Bengals. But the Bengals certainly are getting things going back the right direction after digging a nasty hole for their start to the season. So this would be a good one to knock them back to 3-5 and make them have to dig a little bit harder. Panthers, Broncos, I guess technically we're rooting for the Panthers here, but they are just a mess. I think they've had to go back from Andy Dalton back to Bryce Young here. That is just going to be a feast for that Denver Broncos defense. I think that it's going to be really, really impressive if the Panthers pull off a win here. The Broncos, again, one of the more surprising stories right up there with Washington for this year. I expect them to come out of this week at 5-3 and readily in command of a playoff spot as we go forward. And I did not expect to say that coming into this season. The other 4 o'clock slate, obviously super easy for us to know who we're rooting for. Chiefs at Raiders. This Raiders team is a mess. If we see the Chiefs 2 years in a row lose in a trap game against the Raiders at home in Las Vegas, I will laugh heartily. I do not expect this to be the Chiefs' first loss of the season. They obviously just traded for DeAndre Hopkins. I don't think he's some terrifying weapon, but the man's still got amazing hands, and Patrick Mahomes has made much lesser players look fantastic. So of course DeAndre Hopkins is still going to be impactful and a difference maker for them, because he can still, he's one of those guys who's open even when he's not open, and he catches the ball every single time. I do not expect that to shift dramatically here or to change. So we'll root for the Raiders, but I'm not expecting a whole lot. The Sunday night matchup here, Cowboys 49ers, all NFC, no real significant rooting interest. Technically we play the 49ers, so helping our strength of victory, or strength of schedule tiebreaker, we'll root for them, and it's always fun to root against Cowboys, so I advocate for that strongly. And then the Sunday night or the Monday nighter, another interesting one, Giants at Steelers. This one matters much more, a lot of tiebreakers involved, similar to what we saw in the Giants matchup on the Seahawks. They're a team that every once in a while just comes out with a really impressive performance. I don't know that I expected, but I didn't expect it when they smacked around Seattle either. So this is a team that can get their stuff together when it happens. So the Steelers have looked obviously really good with Russell Wilson last week. Their defense is still fantastic. Najee Harris seems to have a bit of a renaissance here this season. So I expect Pittsburgh to take care of business, but I'll be rooting for the Giants because that just knocks one more AFC contender back a notch to be able to give the Bills more cushion. So as always, one of my favorite things here, if all the games were to go the Bills' way in all of our rooting interests here, you would see them come in at the number 2 slot this week. You see all the other impacts of where things would shake out. If you want to be able to see this or read more of this in detail, again, you could find Uber's work in his Twitter feed, as well as on Reddit and in the Bills Sports Illustrated page to be able to check that out for the week. As always, thank you very much for joining us. Press that like button to help us out. Press that, leave a comment in the YouTube comments. Give us a rating or give us a review if you're listening on Spotify or iTunes. That really helps us get this rolling. It's been a lot of fun for Chris and I to get this set up for you guys. So make sure you check that out. But on behalf of fantastic producer Chris Seth, I'm Greg Tompsett. You've been listening to the Greg Tompsett Football Show, and we are out.